Happy Thursday evening, everyone. Welcome to the online book club, one page at a time. Tonight we will be continuing The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. Tonight we will be discussing lesson 3, dealing with self-confidence. Also, make sure you stick around to the end. The next book we will be reading and discussing is the perfect complement to this current book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And at the end of tonight's show, we'll be doing a drawing. The winner will get a copy of the book and will join the online book club book discussion. Let me send out the link for Val, Nikki, anyone else who's read, or even if you haven't read, if you would just like to join in the discussion. There's the link to the live chat. Hey, how's it going, Scott? Missed you Thursday night. We had our first mastermind group, and I will kind of use this intro as a segue to that. We have a mastermind group that meets on Thursday evenings, 7 p.m. Central, and it's a group focused around resellers. And it kind of, all right, let's break it down this way, right? Lesson 1 we went over was the mastermind, and the mastermind is a group of like-minded people working towards a goal. And masterminds, there's a power in a mastermind that's greater than the sum is greater than the parts. We had our first one this past Thursday night, and lesson 2, which we've discussed. Yeah, I'm sorry, Sunday nights, not Thursday night. Wait, yeah, Sunday night. My days are all running together. Lesson 2 is your definite chief aim, which we talked about last Thursday. Basically, it was goal setting. It was very specific, and that's what we did on our first mastermind. And since it does relate to this book, I wrote mine down. And I'll just go ahead and share it because it's got to be specific. And a lot of visualization and stuff is going on. So I said, I am so happy that by July 19th, 2021, that was 1 year from this past Thursday. Hey, Val. 1 year from this past Thursday, I will have $150,000, which will come in various kinds and amounts. In return for this money, I will sell the most replenishable items as possible on eBay, Poshmark, OfferUp, Mercari, 5 Miles, and Facebook Marketplace that will earn me the $150,000. I believe I will have this money in my possession. My faith is so strong that I can see the money in my hands. It is now awaiting transfer to me at the time in the proportion that I deliver the service I intend to return for it. I am awaiting plans by which to accumulate this money and will immediately follow them when received. I know it sounds kind of corny, but I read this each morning, and I try to read it before I go to bed. Sometimes I'll forget, but I do read it each morning. And Val, you created a goal Thursday too, 3,000 a month, correct?
Correct.
Have you been reading your goal once a day?
No.
Okay.
I've been doing all the steps though.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. So it's a work in progress, but I think it's almost like you're brainwashing yourself. He talks a lot about auto-suggestion, which, remember, this was written in 1928. And, all these principles have been used recently. I think a lot of people in self-help have taken his ideas and put a more modern twist on them. But he was the original author of these, and he studied successful people, and that was his definite chief aim. Like he talked about this week, was to share these principles with other people to allow them to have those same opportunities. And really good book. All right, there's the link if anybody else wants to jump on. And yeah, the mastermind's Sunday night at 7. So I'd love to have you, Scott, or anyone else that wants to join it. We talk reselling on that one. All right. Now I know, like, Val messaged me yesterday, and there are free PDFs of this book, but it turns out that this modern edition or this recent edition, they kind of consolidated it. So she was asking about the pages, and like the pages I gave you weren't matching up, right?
Right.
Okay, and I think that's why. So yeah, I didn't know how to solve that problem, but it's okay. Were you able to read any of it, or kind of?
Nope.
Okay, all right. It's all good. All right, so lesson 3, and once again, we've talked about the mastermind group. We've talked about goals, and lesson 3 is self-confidence. And just kind of thinking about my interactions with other resellers and other people in other areas of my life. I think these are all very applicable. Like you need a group to support you, and you need a goal. Is like really the essence of the first 2 lessons, I think. What do you think, Val? You agree, or?
I agree.
Val agrees. Okay.
You need Nikki
Always
here.
hard starting. All right. So lesson 3, self-confidence, and on the bottom of 137. By the way, stick around to the very end, guys. We will be doing I'll be doing a giveaway for the next book we're going to be reading called Atomic Habits. You just have to be present to win. So, matter of fact, let me put everyone's name in the wheel spinner. I've seen other channels do this little giveaway wheel, and it looks so fun. And I'm excited to do it tonight. So I'm going to do this in real time, so I can add in the people that are here, and anyone else that jumps in before we give it away. All right. So here's the wheel picker. So we have Val is here, and we Dumpster Diver Dad is here. Is anyone else here so far in the chat? That's it so far. Okay, so I'll keep updating that. Yeah, I'll keep updating that. All right. And I think habits is because he talks a lot in lesson 3 about habits, and it makes sense. So I think that's the perfect book to follow this one, because it'll be like, all right, we've got all these ideas, and we've got the mastermind, we've got the goals, we've got the right mindset, but now let's create, how do we create these habits that will lead us to achieve our goals? All right, on the bottom of 137, and I guess I'll just read and talk, and Val, feel free to chime in with any questions or any thoughts. He says, skepticism is the deadly enemy of progress and self-development. You might as well lay this book aside and stop right here, as to approach this lesson with the feeling that it was written by some long-haired theorist who never tested the principles upon which is based. So I think he's saying that, you know, you've got to be open-minded to these type of things. And I remember when I first read him, in another book he wrote called Think and Grow Rich. It's a great one too. Probably even better than this one because it's more concise. But like some of his theories can seem a little out there. But I think if we're too quick to dismiss ideas, I mean, because think about it. What if you were just saying big picture? I mean, what would you do, Val? If somebody said, hey, if Val wants to make $1 million, how can she learn how to do that? What would be the best way, the most effective way, you think? Big picture. I put Val on the spot.
I would talk with other millionaires.
Exactly, right? Talk to them, study them.
Or
try
make
to,
a friends only page.
Right. And that's what YouTube is in a way, right? It's sharing those ideas, like the reseller community, how to how to sell shoes, how to sell on Amazon, etc. All right. Then on the next couple of pages, Nick goes into this big section where he's talking about fear, and he kind of prefaces it by, and this is in 1928, saying this is the age of innovation. And if you think about the 20s, the Roaring 20s, there was so much invention. Transportation, cities were growing, railroads were connecting, you had shipping, you had a lot of inventions like Edison. So you had all growth that was taking place, and he's saying in this time, the one thing that can hold you back, I think, is fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's several ways that fear can manifest it. And he says on the bottom of 138, the development of self-confidence starts with the elimination of this demon called fear, which sits upon a man's shoulder and whispers into his ear, you can't do it. You are afraid to try. You are afraid of opinion. You are afraid that you will fail. You are afraid you have not the ability. I'm sorry, my demon voice isn't very good, but and that kind of rung true to me, right? Like, what prevents us from being successful a lot of times?
For me, it's fear of looking stupid. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah, me too, right? And I think that's a lot of people. And then that's the perfect intro. Then he talks about the 6 different types of fears, which the fear of poverty, of being poor, and he kind of he compares like the animal kingdom to humans, and like how animals, the strong can feed on the weak, but he says and like capitalism, or in our society, it's the wealthy take advantage of the poor. And so the fear of poverty is kind of ingrained in our culture. Then the second fear is the fear of old age. He mentions the fact that a lot of people are feared of, of death, or, of the afterlife. The third fear is what you were talking about, the fear of criticism. And that's the one that I asked myself, because that's the one I fear, that I struggle with. And it's kind of, why do we really care what people think of us? Like, but we do, or at least some of us do. And that prevents us, or it can prevent us from, taking chances. You want to share more about your thoughts on that one? Or how it affects you?
Well, I was actually thinking about it a little earlier today, about how I just think everybody just automatically thinks I'm stupid. And I was thinking about my YouTube channel, and I haven't posted, I don't know, it's been a long time, well over a month. And the reason is because in my real life, if you put me with an absolute stranger, I'm comfortable talking to them because they have zero expectations from me. So I'm not worried about them thinking I'm stupid. But like, if I'm talking to somebody in my real life that I'm not around, like Chad, every single day, like, I get nervous of what they're going to think of me. And I was thinking with my YouTube channel, I think the pressure, because after you're doing it for a while, you make relationships with people on YouTube. And I think it got to me that these people know me too well. They're no longer strangers. So now I care what they think about me.
I like that. That's good. So the expectation, or the familiarity of what people think of you. Yeah. And it's like earlier in the book, he was talking about, how, let's use a school example. You take a test, or let's say you write an essay, and you get an A-, and you get a lot of good compliments, but there's one section that the teacher or the professor, gives you some criticism on. And like, for me, my mind, like, I brush off the success, the good parts. I don't spend much time on that. Or a job evaluation as a teacher, we get rated on a million different categories, and we always get feedback. And you could get the, exceeds expectations, or the A marks on 9 out of 10 categories, but there's one category I fall under expectation or below expectation. Like, that's where for me, I'm ready to fight, but it goes to that fear of criticism and and maybe not having an open mindset to it, to actually use it as an opportunity to get better in the area, to be even, like, I don't even want to admit it. And I don't know, like, and I think, and Clay and I, we talk a lot about this with, counseling and whatnot. I think a lot of these fears that we have, like of criticism, you can trace that back to the way I was raised. Like in my family, winning, you had to win. And Clay, he's not here right now, but Clay had the similar type of upbringing based on what he told me. And so his reaction is he doesn't like to set goals because he's going the opposite way. And for me, it became ingrained into me that I have to win. And if you're telling me the fact that I can't win, or if you're giving me criticism, I think, like, I want to fight against that. And that was the other thing. Like, my family was kind of Sally. They're like always ready to fight. But I don't know. That's interesting, the criticism. Number 4 is the fear of a loss of love. And that makes sense, right? Because you can't control that. Number 5 is the fear of ill health. That one's really appropriate right now in our society. I was watching, I'm a teacher here, and I was watching the school board as they were having a school board meeting, and they give all the speakers who are in attendance 3 minutes to speak. And for 3 hours, people were speaking, and I've never seen anything like it. Every single person was, well, I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but there's a push from the national government and our state government that they want schools open in person. And obviously, here in Texas and in Dallas County specifically, and even within Dallas County, the zip code I'm in, it's a very high concentration. It's like one of the highest spreading pandemic areas in the whole country. And so there's a lot of fear. And everyone that was speaking out was saying that they were speaking against the opening in person, that it should be online or it should be pushed back or something to that effect. And that's number 6. It's the fear of ill health. And number 7, the fear of death. Those two tie in hand, because obviously if if you're teaching, because as a teacher, I know just the flu or strep throat runs through a campus like a wildfire. And our campus has about almost 2,000 people in it, and it's in a small area. So it doesn't make sense. And so everybody's scared of ill health and then death. And that's running through our whole society right now. So yeah, so those are his 6 basic fears. Is there anything you wanted to add to any of that, or any thoughts? Okay.
Well, the why, but I'm sure you'll get to that.
Well, yeah, he kind of talks about them in depth. Like the loss of someone you love, obviously, if there's someone you care about and you can't control that, the fear of ill health, which ties into the fear of death. And then he talks a lot about, maybe what you're taught as a child, and you're worried about going to hell, or if you don't have any faith, and then you're worried about not existing anymore. So these are all kind of, I think, age-old fears that humanity has always kind of dealt with. Poverty, old age, ill health, and death all kind of lumped together. I think criticism kind of stands out, the one we were talking about, and the loss of someone that you care about. All right. And guys out there, remember, if you're watching, I see several people watching. If you comment, I will enter you into the drawing. Oh gosh, offer up. I'm getting a lot of action. Oh, and by the way, just kind of bringing it back to the mastermind real quick. I don't know if it is setting this goal and reading it, or reading this book coupled with that, but it's been a really great week reselling. But I think, thinking about it in terms of fear, I'm trying different and bigger methods of reselling. Like I'm doing replenishables, whether that's wholesale or retail arbitrage, like where you get one listing and you can have a quantity of 100 items because it takes less time to do that. You build an awesome listing, great photos, great descriptions. Then, like I've got one item that I've sold like 20 of them since, and I know Scott can speak of this because he does this a lot. Does drive that. I've got like one listing that sold 20 in the first week, and it seems like my reselling is kind of like blowing up. And I don't want to just say, oh, well, it's because I started this and I'm reading this book. But then again, I think there is definitely something to that. Because if you get past these fears and you're willing to try new things, it can open you up. Hey, Lone Star Picker. Let me add Lone Star Picker into the spinner wheel.
I haven't seen my sales pick up yet, but like I've just started incorporating my steps to my goals. But I have noticed I am actually more excited to do my work, and like I'm motivated to get it done.
Well, that makes sense, and I think there's a delay between creating the like you Thursday night you set up all your action steps, which were good. Like you have to have an action plan for it to be effective. You can't just have the goal. But I think consistently executing those, and then when we meet, us helping each other, I think you will start to see those pick up. I really do. Lone Star Picker said, I so wish I picked up this book, but may download it. Yeah, there's a link in the description for Amazon, Lone Star Picker. There's also a free PDF if you join my One Page at a Time Facebook group. It's there, or you could just Google it. All right, let me catch up. Lone Star's talking. All right. Fear of money, too. Yeah, I think, Scott, that one ties into the fear of poverty, right? Unless you want to add on to that, like, is it fear of not having enough money? Because I kind of think that's the basis of poverty. And that fear can be good in a way. It can drive us as long as it doesn't cripple us. All right, back to the book. All right, the next section, he talks about physical and social heredity. And it's kind of interesting, like his terminology is kind of dated. Like when he's talking about physical heredity, like a more modern definition would be kind of like evolution. And he had this really interesting theory here. I'll read a bit of it. He says the whole process of physical evolution is based upon death, destruction, pain, and cruelty. Then he talks about like how nature, one animal will consume another animal, etc. All forms of animal life live by eating some other and weaker form or some form of vegetation. The cells of all vegetation have a very high order of intelligence. This is where it gets a little bit out there, right? But then again, there has been research like that plants will respond to music. So is it really that far out there? The cells of all animal life likewise have a very high order of intelligence. Undoubtedly, the animal cells of a fish have learned out of bitter experience that the group of animal cells known as a fish hawk are to be greatly feared. By reason of the fact that many animal forms, including that of most men, live by eating the smaller and weaker animals, the cell intelligence of these animals, which enter into and become a part of man, and he's using man inclusively, brings with it the fear growing out of the experiences and having been eaten alive. And then he goes on to say, hey, it's a logical theory. He's saying he's not saying it's for sure, but it's kind of interesting that basically fear through cells of what you have consumed. So like how some of these fears enter us, like if you're eating animals that had different fears, then those fears kind of become part of you. Maybe a little bit out there, but it's kind of an interesting theory, I think. Mm-hmm. You got any thoughts on? You're a fisher. Any thoughts on that?
No.
Do y'all eat the fish, or do y'all just catch and release them?
We've only caught or eaten 2 of the fish that we've caught.
What have y'all caught? Trout or?
We ate the trout, but I want to make a list of the stuff we catch and then eat one of each just to taste them, see the difference in them.
So you're gonna add all that fear into your being.
Yep.
Hey, I love fish too, so I get. Oh, and by the way, like Clay and I canceled our trip, but my family, my daughter talked me into it. We are going up to the Denver area next week, July 29th through August 2nd. So I might holler at you to get some state parks or some places to experience. We just wanted to get outdoors and get away from the Texas heat. All right, Lone Star
Texas people.
Do what?
Did you say get away from the Texas people?
That too, but get away from the heat mostly, like the 100-degree temperature. But yeah, I do want to get away from Texas people. Some of them are something else. Lone Star Picker. This is where I need Clay. What do you know Lone Star Picker's name? Because Clay would have his donut box of everybody's name and location. He said, I appreciated what you just said about the changes in energy. Your actions affect how you attract. It unblocks that which constipates. Flow. So this whole idea of energy, attract, like we did talk about that, the law of attraction, how positive energy attracts positive energy and negative energy attracts negative energy, and how that can relate to a mastermind group, where if you're in a group of positive energy, people supporting, you will grow. Likewise, like I've seen this in the school environment, like there's a group of teachers, and I'll admit I've been in this group before, that we're just really negative and always focusing on the negativity, and that will just kind of pull you down at the same time. Lone Star Pickers, Dumpster Diver Dad, regarding money, green energy, the fear of lack or lack can divide us. My community has a mantra: when we tithe, we give freely and receive joyfully. I like that, Lone Star Picker. Like my church, they're always preaching like when you think about tithing, some people have this idea you're giving and you're doing it begrudgingly, or it's hurting you. But according to the scripture, like it's a statement of faith, and God doesn't need your money. It's your chance to faith in God. And so yeah, I think however you want to give, whether it's religiously or even not, just out of charity, or you just want to help someone, that you should do it, with an open heart and not grudgingly. All right. Texas people, Lone Star Picker knows, Texas people can challenge us. I can attest to that in Austin, Texas. Hey, Louie, I'm glad to know your name. My daughter goes to school down in Austin. So it's a great city. Austin is a great city, man. That's kind of the culture spot of Texas. Music, real progressive. A lot of homeless people too, though. All right, moving on. So he talks physical heredity. So like this idea of fear is you're actually becomes part of you. But mostly what he talks about is he calls it social heredity. And I would say we would call this learned heredity. And he said social heredity, this term having reference to the methods by which one generation imposes upon the minds of generations under its immediate control the superstitions, beliefs, legends, and ideas which in turn inherited from generations preceding. So all these family traditions, cultural traditions, Texas traditions, Coloradian traditions, like different areas, American traditions, that make us unique and make us our culture. Whether you get big globally or you bring it down to a family unit, they're all, the things that our parents teach us. Because when we're young, we're learning these things. If we're not cognitively like, oh yeah, I believe this, but those things are kind of like imprinted on our mind and our beliefs. He says social heredity should be understood to mean any and all sources through which a person acquires knowledge, such as schooling, religious nature, reading, word-of-mouth conversations, storytelling, and all manner of thought, inspiration come from what is generally accepted as one's personal experience. And I was thinking about this, like when I read this book, and when you read the book, Val, we may agree on some things, but we're gonna interact with it differently, and that's true with any piece of art because the object is the same, the words are the same, but all that social heredity, your family, your schooling, your religious background, all of that affects how you view something. And even to take it to another level, like as a lit major, like when I read if I read a book in high school, I'm going to view it a certain way. If I read it in college, I'm probably going to get something different because I changed. And if I read it at 35, you can come back to it, but it's going to be different because you've changed. Let me read this last part, then I'll get to Clay's comment. It said, through the operation of the law of social heredity, anyone having control of the mind of a child may, through intense teaching, plant in that child's mind any idea, whether false or true, in such a manner that the child accepts it as true, and it becomes as much a part of the child's personality as any cell or organ of its physical body, and just as hard to change in its nature. And I think about, when I read that, I thought about Tiger Woods, like how he was raised as an infant by his dad to be a great golf player. And he was shaping his mind for that. And I kind of agree with all that. What are your thoughts on what he's talking about, social heredity? And I'll let you think about that real quick. On the chat, Clay, I'm gonna enter you into the drawing since you dropped by. Clay's here. Angie and I, eight still eight out, in line at Brahms. Boy, what did we say about going to eating in person? You're the reason my corona is spiking. I hope you got your mask on. They got this thing called a drive-through. But I know Clay's safe. He's probably got like 2 masks on and has mask. He says DNA is a huge part of every person and the traditions. And
I agree with that.
All right, you want to write on any of that?
Well, I agree with it. Well, I don't know.
What do you think?
Like the fears that I have, like they're not, at least in my mind, I don't see them as being DNA related or even in my environment. Like it's just me. Like I don't know where the fear comes from.
Sorry, I had an accident here.
Rewind that.
My Texas drink had a little leakage. So I'm sorry. So you said the fear isn't from inside. Last part you were saying? That
I disagree. Well, I do and I don't. I see how it makes sense, but I just don't think it applies to like my fears.
And like specifically like the fear of
criticism, or even just like, I don't know if anxiety would be considered a fear.
Yeah, it is, I think, right? Anxiety is like a mild fear, I guess. I don't know if the clinical term is like, I have a lot of anxiety, and I've like had to learn how to cope with that. But yeah, like a mild fear that just kind of sticks around, perhaps. Like I get that a lot. Okay, Clay is in the drive-through. Good, Clay. Good boy. Jay's in the house. I'm adding you to the drawing. Remember, guys, stick around to the end. We're going to have a giveaway for the next book, Atomic Habits, and that book is amazing. So far, we have Val, Lone Star Picker, Clay, and Jay on the giveaway list. All right.
Was Scott on the giveaway? Isn't that who else was in here?
Yeah, Scott is Triple D. Dumpster Diver Dad. Louis, aka Lone Star Picker. I remember the theologian who is a contemplative spiritual teacher of mine, and a saying, the issues are in the tissues. The issues are in the tissues. So I'm trying to break that down. So contemplative, so he thinks a lot. So are the issues and the fact that you're crying into the tissues? Are the issues that you're actually crying? I don't know. That's an open statement. Sounds deep, though. All right. Let's get back to it. So he's talking about social heredity. And here on the bottom of 141, he says, any idea planned and defined by one in whom the child has confidence takes root and grows, so to speak, in such a manner that it never can be eradicated or wiped out, no matter how opposed to logical reason that idea may be. So he's really kind of latching onto this idea, like how you're formed and your ideas that are imprinted on you from your family or bigger society really become part of who you are. And I would tend to agree with that. And I think you'd see that in a lot of therapy and counseling, like a lot of issues that show up later in life that we don't know, but subconsciously our mind is, because our brain doesn't understand time. Like whatever trauma or hurt you have, whether if you're 5 when it happens, you could be 95 and something can trigger that, and you may not even recognize that's being triggered, and because your brain doesn't differentiate time. And I wrote down a little question, which I already asked Val, but you guys in the audience, if y'all want to respond, which of those fears grips you? Once again, there's poverty, old age, criticism, loss of a loved one, ill health, or death. Pick from any of those lovely fears. Jay's in the house. Hey, Jay.
Is it possible for somebody to have no fears?
Do you think it's possible to really have no fear? And can somebody have no fear?
And can you get to a point, if you have fear, can you get to a point of being fearless?
It's a good question. And I think fear does serve a purpose, right? Like fear, like if you go back thousands of years ago, like certain fears kept us alive. If you saw a tiger in the wild, that fear is justified. Fear of the dark. Think about it. Like I love Stephen King. By the way, I ordered Stephen King's most recent book. I want a good fun read. So I hope it's here before I go to Colorado. But anyway, but Stephen King deals with these questions of fear. And the fear of the dark is a common fear. Like, why should we be afraid of the dark right now? But if you go back, before early in human history, I'm sure that might be the physical heredity that's kind of passed down from DNA to DNA to DNA, where we're taught to be afraid of the dark because you go out in the dark, a tiger might eat you while you're going to the restroom, outside of the fire. Interesting. Louis says it contributes to the negative energy such as anxiety. We all have aspects of it. That's good. That's true. That would benefit us to consciously become aware and non-critically observe what comes up or is triggering it. So anxiety leads to negative energy. So it would benefit us if we could consciously become aware of what's causing it. I'm putting his words in my own words, I think. And I might be butchering. I'm sorry if I'm late. That become aware of those anxieties and what's causing them, what's triggering them, then that's how we can defeat those fears. And I would agree with that. All right. What else? Then he kind of goes into more depth about all the fears, which he spends a couple pages on each, and I don't want to go through all of that right now, but y'all can go through it. Then he has this big section around page 150 where you could tell he grew up in a farm, and that makes sense in the if this was written in 1928, and I don't know how old he was, maybe 30 or 40. Like, he probably grew up late 1800s or around 1900, and most people were still living in farms, even though cities were growing. And so he spends a lot of time as he studied nature and how that relates to animals learning. Like on 150, he spent a couple pages talking about how he observed these birds, like a bird from his window, and he went out to the nest, and the mother bird was like raising a fit, and the mother bird flew away, and he picked up one of the baby birds, and the birds weren't scared at all. Like they hadn't been trained to be afraid of him. And that when he left the bird, he went back and he observed them again, and the mama bird was like, bird talking, like yelling at her baby birds, teaching them like, don't ever let a human touch you. You should fly away. So that he then tested it out. Not too long after, he went back out there, and the birds, and of course, probably the fact that they could fly, they left at that point. So how that nature, even animals in nature, train their own to use fear to avoid, death or destruction. And then he talks about when he was young, he captured a baby crow, and he domesticated this baby crow, and it was a pet to him. And like for months, the crow would hang out. It had its nest or like in his room, and at night he would open the window. The crow would fly out. It would come back, and then one day he said another crow, like interacting with his pet crow, and like they were communicating. And then the crow came back, but it was different. And it was like the crow was trying to speak to him, but then it flew off. And it came back a couple of days later, and it was like squawking at him, and then it flew off, and it never came back. And so he was asserting that other crow taught his crow, "Are you with? That's not what you should be doing. That's dangerous." And then he gives another example about bullfrogs and just different other animals. And I think the point he's implying is that nature uses social heredity just like we do to teach its young what to be afraid of and to try to keep them safe. Ooh, Louis answered one of our questions. He said, I think criticism for me, learning to shrug things off and not take what I think is a bad critical comment. The worst for me, I finally realized, is fear of my own inner critic. Ooh, that's deep, the real dark, your own inner critic. Yeah, we can be our own worst enemies, right? That's the expression. We can beat ourselves up more than anyone else. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Louis. That's thank you for sharing that. And inner awareness helps us to successfully permit such laws as per the book maybe. Yeah. So becoming aware of these things will help you deal with them, I guess. Overcome them. Okay. All right, on page 155, and he talks about this in Think and Grow Rich too. Like he mentions the fact at around the age, like when he studied all these successful, and I know it's sexist, but it was men, but it was more of a sexist society back then. That when he studied them at around age 40 is when most of these men became very successful. And that like there's a maturity of the mind that going through life, like you're not, and there's exceptions to the rule, but most people aren't really ready in their 20s to grab life by the horns. And like for me, like when I read Think and Grow Rich, I just turned 40, And to me, like talking about your inner demons, like I felt like I was a failure at that point. Like I'm like, all right. I was comparing myself to other friends who were more successful. They had more money. They had a nicer house, nicer car, things. And I felt like I hadn't been successful in my life. But when I read his book, Think and Grow Rich, and I read that, it really kind of lifted up my spirits. That okay, most of these successful people, it's not when they're young. It's kind of like that mid age, around 40 or later, that they kind of finally figure it out, and that was kind of up to me. But if you get in a good mastermind and you can get ahead of this game and you can start before you're 40, even that much better. In the next section, he's kind of talking about the mind. He says, perhaps none of these great forces of nature are more available for man's unfoldment than is the. So he keeps talking about autosuggestion. And he says, but ignorance of this force is leading the majority of the human race to apply it so that it acts as a hindrance and not as a help. So he's talking about autosuggestion, like this. When I read this every day, that's autosuggestion. Nikki, when she was on here, she was talking about reading those positive self-comments, right? That's autosuggestion. You could have positive autosuggestion or negative, and kind of like what I was talking about earlier, like you can have, or what Louis was talking about, that's negative autosuggestion. These are the beliefs that we tell ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have a good enough personality. All these things, we keep telling ourselves that, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where we believe it. Whereas if we impart these positive thoughts into our minds consistently through repetition, that becomes part of our DNA and we begin to believe it. And I think that's really true. What do you think, Val?
Yes, I'm guilty of repeating the negative things to myself. It's very true because I do believe the negative things that I'm constantly thinking or telling myself.
And those are coming from your own head?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
kind of like
my environment is so positive. Like,
Mhm.
I don't have very many people in my life. It's mainly Chad, my family, and the small groups that I put my time into. But everything around me is positive. It's all me, though.
That's good. Well, number one, it's good that you have that positivity, and see, I'm thinking like from a counselor's perspective, where what Louis was talking about, be like trying to figure out why. I'm the same way. Why do we have these negative mindsets, or as Clay would say, why? Like I told him earlier, like I know Clay well enough that I can sense when he's about to spiral down and go into that defeated self-talk. And I even told him today, I'm like, hey, don't let this happen. Stay positive. Trying to give him a pep talk. But we think a lot of us do that, where we beat ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting figuring out the why. Jay says, why is there a hand on her door curtain behind? Wait, why is there a hand on her door curtain behind? Do you have a hand on a curtain?
That?
That's a plant, right?
Yeah, it's a little tree.
Jay, have you been drinking too much tonight, my friend? Yeah, maybe he's mistaking the tree for a hand. It's moving. My fears right now is for Jay. Jay's mind. What? Maybe the air conditioner came on, or a haunted plant? I don't know. Interesting. We'll keep an eye on it. Y'all keep an eye on it. See what's happening. Louis says, wasn't sexism, in my opinion, a form of fear? Oh, another form of fear, that a woman can be more powerful, smarter, successful, stronger than a dude. Yeah, that's good, right? Yeah, why? Well, you want to speak? You as a woman? Sexism? What are your thoughts, Val? And Val on the spot tonight. Well, I think from a guy's point of view, that's probably true, Louis. That even social heredity, that that men do fear that, and that to keep women down, because I mean, I don't want to talk much politics, but there's some women that women can be attacked in politics. They'll call her, excuse my language, like a bitch, really mean, nasty things. And if it was a male politician, they wouldn't be as harsh. Same thing. Just well, I guess the leaders in any type, right? Like we've had female principals at our school, mostly, to be honest. And you got some?
No, I was pointing to what Jay was talking about.
What is it?
Oh yeah, there is a fan blowing on that curtain. It's moving.
Is it by the fridge?
Yeah. He's barely moving. And he's really zoomed in on my video. Thanks.
Yeah, that's pretty good. He caught that. It'd be more impressive as like a ghost movie. Like for another time, we could have paranormal talk, and I have some crazy paranormal talk that's true. On another time, maybe for a Halloween show, we do a scary book. Like I tell my students around Halloween, I'll just give you a little preview. Like when I was growing up, we didn't grow up like my parents weren't Christian at the time. Now they are, but so I didn't grow up in church. And I read a lot of Stephen King, and some friends and I started dabbling with the Ouija board once. Well, not more than once, for a long time. And some crazy stuff you would see in a horror movie, like experienced, and multiple people witnessed it. We'll save that for another talk show. But yeah, like those things moving behind you, like I've seen things like that moving, and multiple people have seen them like during the day, doors opening and shutting, basketballs flying across the room. All right, but I diverge. That's another fear of the supernatural. All right, I'm gonna lose a few viewers I got. They're like, this dude's crazy. Dave says, I don't know about that. Maybe more stereotypical ideas. You want to explain a little bit? Like why are stereotypes formed, though? That'd be my follow-up question. Couldn't you argue stereotypes are formed out of fear? Because I think in general, we fear what we don't know. Like, I don't want to go into politics, but politics keeps coming up. That when certain people have political beliefs, a lot of time, like their fears, it's because they don't know the group of people that they're afraid of. They haven't interacted with those people they only know them through the fearful images that they're consuming. Whereas me, as a teacher, I've taught every race, ethnicity, and I've got to know all parents. And what I've learned, there's bad people in all groups. The vast majority of people are really good, and we share way more in common than we don't. So I think some of these stereotypes we create are to reinforce that fear, which would be social heredity, like he's talking about. And we don't want to take the time to really get to know people. And like I know some people or some organizations have they've brought groups with different ideas together over a long period of time, and what they found out is once they get to know each other, it doesn't matter which spectrum you're on. Once you get to know these people as humans and really get to know them, their political views will change, and they'll see each other as people. I don't know. I feel like I'm straying a little bit off topic, but I guess going back to the stereotypes, I think it does tie back into fear. And I'll leave it at that because I feel like I'm rambling. Louis says, I keep hearing a clicking sound from the panel audio. It's the ghost of Louis. It's the ghost of the trout that Val ate. Jay says, maybe it's Val's mic or the curtain on the door. All right. All right, page 157. Now this one I really related to. All right, so I'll read it. This is kind of a long section. He goes, here's a man who has been well schooled and has the ability to render the world some needed service. Somewhere, sometime, he has heard it said that modesty is a great virtue, and that to push himself to the front of the stage in the game of life savors of egotism. He quietly slips in at the back door and takes a seat at the rear while other players in the game of life boldly step up to the front. He remains in the back row because he fears what they will say, the criticism. Public opinion, or that which he believes to be public opinion, has him pushed to the rear, and the world hears but little of him. His schooling counts for naught because he is afraid to let the world know that he has had it. He is constantly suggesting to himself, thus using the great force of autosuggestion to his own detriment, that he should remain in the background lest he be criticized, as if criticism would do him any damage or defeat his purpose. Skip down a little bit. It says, quite unconsciously, he permits himself to fall victim of the belief, once poor, always poor, until that belief becomes the dominating thought of his mind. He resembles a horse that has been harnessed and broken until it forgets that it has the potential power with which to throw off that harness. So he gave an example of, I guess, like negative autosuggestion. Like this one kind of really rang true with me, and several of us talked about criticism, and that's me. Like, and I don't know if it's me being an introvert, or what the fear is, but like in high school and college, as a teacher in meetings, oftentimes, like I'll know the answer to what someone's asking the question, I won't even respond because the fear of the criticism, and that's what this guy was going through, and how that continual those continual actions and thoughts reinforce themselves to the point where he believes that he has nothing good to offer. And I'll tell you, and I'll add one more thing on that. Like doing this book club, like, ooh, I had a lot of doubts, and I still do, to be honest. But I kind of had those thoughts even starting a YouTube channel for reselling. But to me, reselling was more straightforward. I can show people what I sold and share that knowledge. That's more straightforward. But something like this requires more vulnerability because you have to kind of open up more. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, nobody wants to hear my thoughts or what I think of a book, and that anxiety was crippling strong. But as we've done a few of these, it's become less and less so. You got any thoughts or connections to that?
No, that's exactly it. I mean, doing videos about Poshmark and stuff, it's easy. Like the knowledge is there. You're just sharing that, what I think is common knowledge on how to Poshmark, whatever. But then you come on here and you're sharing your own thoughts and ideas on something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even talking much, and I'm.
You're sharing, and it's. I think it's really hard to do that. It requires being vulnerable, and that's going to be one of the other books we're going to do. It's on vulnerability by Brene Brown. And I guess for me, like I do have an advantage because I forced to do it in an educational setting, and encourage students to express themselves, whether writing or orally or kinesthetically, even sometimes like in athletics. So, but I think it's that's fear of criticism, though. It's hard to be vulnerable because we're worried what people will think.
And that example of the kid in the back of the room being quiet because he doesn't want to be criticized. Well, I'm that kid in the back of the room, and even when I'm quiet in the back of the room, I feel like I'm being criticized for being quiet and in the back of the room. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why not be the person at the front of the room sharing my thoughts on stuff? Because I feel like I'm going to be criticized anyways.
Right. Yeah, and it's not logical. I mean, I'm not as a put down because I think I've experienced that too. But it's not logical. And like you've expressed those fears on here, and I think everybody would agree that you have great insight. We love hearing your thoughts. So, but even though people will tell you that, I guess over time maybe we start to believe it slowly, but it takes a while. Like for me, it's hard to accept compliments, whereas I'm more like I could have 100 compliments and one criticism. I'm not going to fall in that one criticism. And like in coaching, like I've always coached, until I started my reseller business past few years. I don't coach anymore. But as a coach, we're taught to use the 80-20 rule. Like 80% of the time, like 4 out of 5 times, you should compliment, positive reinforcement of your players. Hey, good form on your free throw. Hey, that's a nice swing. Your elbows were in. Your wrists were set correctly. Because if you do the 80-20 rule, then if you approach that one negative criticism the right way, they're more receptive. Which kind of goes back to this whole idea of fear of criticism. I think it probably pervades a lot of us. Let's see. Louis said, Val, as opposed to using positive affirmation versus the inner critic negativity, we beat ourselves up when identified or attached. I don't know if it means attacked. In the moment, awareness through self-observation. Okay, yeah. And Jay says, formed from experiences or perceptions of reality. Talking about the criticism? Yeah. Because it goes back to the social heredity, right? That I think we are, who we are is formed through our experiences and our perceptions of reality. And whether that's within the family unit, the school, the church, the neighborhood, where you live, the city, the state, the country, all of those form us. Louis says, did you hear that inner critic when okaying about viewers saying, who is that crazy guy? But like you said, it doesn't really matter what others think. Definitely, the inner critic was screaming when I was doing it. It was so hard, but yeah. Yeah, and we are all crazy. I think we're all unique and crazy. Jay feels like he's in school. All right, well, Val, I thought about giving Val the detention because she didn't do the assignment reading. I put Jay and Val both in detention. All right, moving on. 158. Talks about, and I started to get into self-confidence. Self-confidence develops when used, but disappears if not used. And then he goes into this section about one of the chief disadvantages of inherited wealth is the fact that it too often leads to inaction and loss of self-confidence. And when he was growing up, when he was coming up, he was around a lot of wealthy people, and he saw a lot of these wealthy people's sons and daughters that were sent to college and were given money and really didn't have any pressure, and how they often turned to alcoholism or just a lot of negative outcomes. And I think we would still see that in society today quite a bit. Like what is it? Like, I think we all have drive, all of us resellers. And like, I know I didn't come from a wealthy family. And I don't know about everyone else, but I think there is something to that. If you have everything without having to work for it, then you're not going to be motivated to go out and get it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think? Anybody out there come from a wealthy family and you're still hustling at the thrift store in the garage? Yeah, like, think about it. How many wealthy, if you come from a wealthy family, are those kids going to the thrift store? Are they going out to garage sales? I wonder what percentage are. Where do you turn your nose up like that? Even though we weren't wealthy, like when I was brought up, like a thrift store was like, ooh, you're shopping at a thrift store. But I guess that has shifted a little bit. There is, like, culture does kind of, like, it's anti-culture. It's going against the grain, so it's kind of cool, right? Louis says, yes, regarding vulnerability, it comes from the true sense of the word meek, often misunderstood as weak. It's meek, a strength by root of word, like being humble. Okay, I like that etymology, like breaking that word down. We are definitely in school right now, Jay. Jay, I need you to come up with a synonym and an antonym and use vulnerability in a sentence, please. I'm messing with you. Clay, hey, there's Clay. Who cares if people criticize? I just came back. I'm getting better at brushing people off they do that or even try to help me if it's not helpful to them. But let's be honest, Clay, does that criticism hurt? It hurts. But I think what is that, a defense mechanism? Say, F you, I don't care. I think that's like how I was raised. Like if somebody came against you, like just F them, let's fight, which is a defense mechanism to cover up vulnerability and fear and sadness and all these other emotions. And like my counselor, my therapist would say, like, you've got to learn to embrace those emotions. And like I learned for me personally, like I built a wall up from the way I was raised, and then being a guy, and later becoming a police officer, and all these things stacked up where I didn't show any emotions, and that is so unhealthy. And over the past couple of years, seeing my counselor, I've slowly worked on, like we use the metaphor of a wall. I built up this wall, I'm slowly pulling out a brick here, a brick there, and even talking about this as being vulnerable. And I never would have talked about emotions before. All right, Clay says, Val, that Facebook post showed your confidence being silly. I didn't see that one. Which one's that? You got a fish or something?
I think he's talking about my hairdo earlier.
Oh, we'll have to check it. You want to share your screen? You want to be
I
vulnerable and share your screen so we can check it out? Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll pull it up later. Introductions. Louis says to Clay, can I use people all kinds, whether negative or not, as if they are my teacher, and internally say thank you for teaching me? Well, yeah, that's good, Louis. Like, and here's the thing, we can all learn from each other. That's the whole point of the mastermind. Everybody has something to add. And once we get over these fears, then I think we're more receptive and willing to learn, to set these goals, and to not be afraid to go make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Got to change our reality. Yes, sir. All right, moving on. Page 160. He's talking about self-confidence. The human mind, if you will pardon repetition, may be likened to an electric battery. It may be positive or it may be negative. Self-confidence is the quality with which the mind is recharged and made positive. I really like that. Using the analogy of the mind as a battery, positive or negative. And if it becomes negative over time, how can we turn that to positive? It's through self-confidence. And that self-confidence, he's implying this. He doesn't come out and say a lot of things, but he's implying that self-confidence comes through by auto-suggestion and repetition. And I would add my own take on it, like consuming good content, good conversation, kind of what Louis talking about. And just because there's this saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I fully believe that. And like studying my different students and the cliques and the groups and their friends, and even us as adults, who we hang around. If we're hanging around a lot of negative people, we're negative. But if we surround ourselves with a small positive group, then our mind charge is going to turn to that positive side.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that analogy.
And even with the mastermind groups, I feel like with building the confidence, like having the mastermind group just differs from just having a group with something in common. Because I was comparing my last chat group, whatever, to the mastermind group, and having a group of people with a similar goal in mind, even if it's not exactly the same, like your numbers are much higher than my goal numbers, but just having somebody else or a group of people with that same goal, I feel like it's building my confidence. It makes me work harder, which builds my confidence. I feel good about myself. Whereas my last group, I think the only thing we had in common was YouTube, and there was no goal within that group, and the group didn't work. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's really good. Like I would say, like if you look at all these Facebook groups, there's so many reseller groups. Like I even have one. Not that I do much with it. That's something I need to get to. But What I've kind of noticed is that most of the posts and comments are always negative. You know, how are your sales? My sales are bad. I hate eBay. I hate this. And
Mhm.
it's that negative auto suggestion kicking in. And so I don't spend a lot of time on those groups anymore. And like I want to keep my group, positive.
Mhm.
Whereas a mastermind group, it's smaller and I think it's more focused.
Mhm.
Um, it's easier to control. So yeah, that's really good that a group like that can real accountability. Not
Mhm.
like if you don't make it, like somebody's gonna beat you or berate you, but there is it takes a little bit of pressure. It does take a little bit of conflict for us to want to achieve a goal. And I think once you tell the group this is my goal, everybody's gonna be there supporting you. And if you don't make it, everybody's here to help everybody. But at the same time, in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I've made this goal and everybody's aware of it. I need to. It may
Mhm.
give you that little bit of motivation.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
I also feel like with the mastermind group, like if I do start to fall short and I'm missing my aim, I feel like the group's not gonna beat me down about it, but instead, like, okay, well, let's figure out what we can do to change to help you get back on track.
Exactly, and that's what he talks about in lesson one, the mastermind. That you can't have. I don't think I mentioned this, but he said you can't have a negative person in that group. Like he talks about harmony of ideas and minds. Like they all have to be. You don't all have to have the same exact goal, but you all need to have the same positive mindset
Yeah.
um, to help each other grow. Louis says one thing I learned about people is they have flaws too, and I can move past, for me, their flaws or our or own hurt issues. Shrugging it off is a great form of picking my own battles. Clay. Okay. Oh, this was a response to Clay's criticism. That's good. That's insightful. Then he followed it up with aforementioned about criticism has helped me become a better reseller. When I get a nasty customer or buyer, I just remain professional. Yeah, that's good. Like you have to like what I've learned. The more you sell, the less personally you take it. Like I view it as a number. I know there's going to be a percentage that are just going to be mean and nasty, but like I also like try. This is a little trick I learned from a book. I don't remember which book I read, but to validate them, even if they're wrong and you totally disagree with it, just validate them. Like you don't have to agree with it, but let them know that they're heard and be professional and try to take care of it. A lot of times you can turn that negative customer around. Not always, but a lot of time you can. So it's how you handle it.
Mhm.
Um, Scott's here. Scott says, crazy how you are raised affects you. Big time, Scott. Like going to counseling the last couple of years, it affects you so much. Some good, some bad. But once again, we focus on those negative things. And even if our parents, 95% of the time were great, that 5% is what affects us or what we're going to be drawn to. And it really affects you. Louis says, talking to Scott, seriously, it's insane. And now we have opportunities to change reality and realize transformation is an aim to improve. Daily refinement. That's what, to me, that's the best YouTuber there is, daily refinement. That means to get a little bit better each day. And I agree with that philosophy. So in my own lesser level way, I try to use his approach. In other words, unlearn that shit we were taught. Yeah, assuming it was bad stuff we were taught. What? All right, moving on. Then he gave a couple of observations, like how he was looking out the window. Um, oh no, this was a good story. I like this one. All right, so I'm gonna read this part. He was talking about salesmen and how this one salesman. No, here we go. All right, this guy. This is on 160. He was a timid young man with a more or less retiring sort of nature. He was one of those who believed it's best to slip in by the back door and take a seat at the rear of the stage of life. One evening, he heard a lecture on the subject of this lesson. So I'm implying like this was somebody that came to Napoleon Hill's lecture, and then he later told him about the story. This lesson on self-confidence, and that lecture so impressed him that he left the lecture hall with a firm determination to pull himself out of the rut into which he had drifted. He went to the business manager of the newspaper, and asked for a position as a solicitor of advertising, so an advertising salesman, and was put to work on a commission basis. And like if you've ever worked solely on commission, that's fear can really come in, the fear of money, because there's no guarantee. Everyone in the office expected him to fail, as this sort of salesmanship calls for the most positive type of sales ability. He went to his room and made out a list of a certain type of merchants on whom he intended to call. One would think that he would naturally have made up his list of names of those whom he believed he could sell with the least effort, but he did nothing of the sort. He placed on his list only the names of the merchants on whom other advertising salesmen had called without making a sale. His list consisted only of 12 names. Before he made a single call, he went out to the city park, took out his list of 12 names, read it over and over 100 times, saying to himself as he did so, "You will purchase advertising space for me before the end of this month." So there's your auto suggestion. Then he began to make his calls. The first day he closed sales with 3 of the 12 impossibilities. During the remainder of the week, he made sales to 2 others. By the end of the month, he had opened advertising accounts with all but one of the merchants that he had on the list. For the ensuing month, he made no sales, for the reason that he made no calls except on this one obstinate merchant. Every morning when the store opened, he was on hand to interview this merchant, and every morning the merchant said no. The merchant knew he was not going to buy advertising space, but this young man didn't know it. When the merchant said no, the young man did not hear it, but kept right on coming. On the last day of the month, after having told this persistent young man no for 30 consecutive times, the merchant said, "Look here, young man, you have wasted a whole month trying to sell me. Now, what I would like to know is this: why have you wasted your time?" "Wasted my time nothing," he retorted. "I have been going to school, and you have been my teacher. Now I know all the arguments that a merchant can bring up for not buying. And besides that, I have been drilling myself in self-confidence." Then the merchant said, "I will make a little confession of my own too, of my own. I too have been going to school, and you have been my teacher. You have taught me a lesson in persistence that is worth money to me. And to show you my appreciation, I am going to pay my tuition fee by giving you an order for advertising space." And that was the way in which the Philadelphia North American's best advertising account was brought in. Likewise, it marked the beginning of a reputation that made that same young man a millionaire. He succeeded because he deliberately charged his own mind with sufficient self-confidence to make that mind an irresistible force. When he sat down to make up that list of 12 names, he did something that 99 people out of 100 would not have done. He selected the names of those whom he believed it would be hard to sell, because he understood that out of the resistance he would meet with in trying to sell them would come strength and self-confidence. He was one of the very few people who understood that all rivers and some men are crooked because of following the line of least resistance. I really like this because, I mean, the fear of criticism, right? Like I've sold cars before. Like when I was in college, I worked at CarMax, and I sold cars, and that was hard for an introvert, and the fear of rejection. So So you would think you would go after the easy sells, but he went after the hard ones because he would learn about selling, and he used auto suggestion and self confidence to get where he wanted. And I think that's a very valuable lesson for all of us. Any thoughts?
This could be the story of Valerie and Poshmark doing it the easy way, where if I did eBay, even though I think it's hard and there's a lot to learn, yeah, there is a lot to learn, and I think that could make me a really good reseller.
Ooh, I like it. Val's reselling story. I like it. Yeah, definitely. I know you have it in you. It's just that fear, a little bit of the fear of the unknown, but
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. But the mastermind group will be here to support you, and start small. As Clay would say, baby steps. But here's the thing: I think those baby steps accumulate over time, but you got to keep taking them and not be afraid to fall. Louis says at Scott, it is insane, and now we have opportunities. Oh, I think I read that. Yeah. All right. Clay said, yes, a true mastermind won't ever beat you down or to me criticize. Like if someone doesn't hit their goal and they're okay not hitting it, then that's it. People can. All right, I'm gonna push back a little bit, Clay. Like I think if you're okay not hitting it, did you ever really want it? Now, what I would say is this: like I agree. Like I don't think anybody would ever beat anybody up for not hitting their goal. But like if I didn't hit my goal, and then people like we're trying to figure out why, and we kind of found out the reasons why, then I would want people to give that to me honestly. You know, not crush me or kill me, but I like Val tell me, Brian, you've been lazy. You've been watching basketball nonstop. How many listings have you got up? None. By the way, I'm so excited. Baseball, basketball coming very soon. Matter of fact, the Mavericks are scrimmaging right now, LA. But that's how important the book club is in here. So I do agree with you, but I think we also, I think we need to take our goals seriously too, and try like put that effort in, that persistence, like this guy put in. He wasn't taking no for an answer, because I think if we set a goal, like think about it, he set a goal. I'm getting these 12 people, and he put everything on the stake. He went full commission. He could have lost everything. He was meek. He was an introvert, probably like you and I, Val. Like I can see myself in his shoes, because most salesmen are like my image of them is aggressive and extroverted, but he didn't do that. But he took the principles. He went to one of his classes, his lectures on self-confidence, and so he wrote their names down, and then just like his definite chief aim was to get those 12 people, and he didn't set his side on. There was no, well, if I don't get them, I'll be okay. And he wanted to get them, so he read that over. That I'm going to get whatever he said. I'm going to get them 100 times, and using auto suggestion that built in. And then he knew that every time he was told no, he was learning something. So how we approach rejection and failure, that's another thing. Like we've got to be okay with losing, but learning from it. Like if you lose and don't learn anything, then I think that's bad. There's a saying that my counselor says, we learn, and it's not his, but it's a famous, semi-famous quote. We win or we learn, right? So you either succeed. If you don't succeed, you learn something from that. And that could be relationship-wise, that could be business-wise anyway. And then he stuck with it. Like he got 11 of the 12 impossible clients. I think most people would have met and said, hey, that's good enough. You got 11 out of 12. That's great. You couldn't get that one guy. No one could have bought his account. But he stuck with it, and that merchant admired his persistence and eventually gave him his business, and he gained a lot from that. So I think that's a very valuable little anecdote or little story. All right, let's catch up on the chat. Remember, guys, comment to be at the end. We're going to be doing a drawing for the next book. It's a great book. I promise you it will really change your life, and it builds on this one very well. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I do have a link in the description of the YouTube video, but I will be giving away a free copy tonight. You just have to be present to win. So I'm adding people based on the comments. So if you haven't commented, just say hi. Clay says, Scott, to me, who we are goes back thousands of years, and I guess I've never had a buyer that was nasty, or if I did, I don't remember because I kill everyone with kindness. Are you talking about like the DNA heredity, Clay? What do you mean we go back 1,000 years? Is that the physical heredity? And I agree that Clay is so nice, like it's hard for people to be mean to Clay. Which is why I think they turn on me when I push back against Clay, like Danica and some others, they will come after me. And Clay and I joke, but I'm like, hey, I'm trying to help him. Scott agrees with Clay. Louis says, Clay, can you speak more about the term love? Yeah, the 5 love languages. That's another good book. The way we were raised, or what we're looking for, we all have a love language. Like it's been a long time since I've read it. Like your love language might be gifts. Like you're a person that if somebody gives you a gift, you feel love. Or your love language might be words, where you want to speak with someone. Like there's 5 different styles, and it's been a while since I've read those. Well, maybe Clay explained that. Louis, you got to buy this book. Yeah, there he goes. Called The 5 Love Languages. It's amazing, and that book is good. Maybe we'll add that on the list, and we'll do that one. It'd be good for me to reread that. It's been a long time. For example, I need a positive confirmation and physical contact to feel love. That comes from stuff as a kid. Yeah, like mine is the physical contact too. Like I need, because I didn't get a lot of and I understand how my parents were. Like they were raised a certain way, so I didn't get that physical contact, the hugs and the I love yous and things like that. So I was kind of starved for that. And like my wife, she has all that. She gives that. Like she's like a son, and she just shoots all that out. And I just honestly, like I just absorbed that, and I wasn't giving enough because I was a messed up person. But that love language, physical contact, like it could be as simple as holding a hand or a hug. That's mine too. And that's a great book. Yeah, maybe we'll add that to our list. Great book. Clay said it's a life changer. Really, if you are married or have kids, it'll help because we all have one main love language and a secondary. Yeah, so learning your own and learning other people's, because here's an example. If mine is physical contact, and like Claudia's is acts of service, where like my wife feels loved if I mow the lawn, or like right now there's a board on the fence that's been broken, and she's been reminding me for a long time, and she's getting frustrated because she feels like I don't love her. Where to me, I hate doing that stuff. Like I'd rather hold her hand or do different things to show that it's like 2 different people speaking 2 different languages. So being aware of other people's love language and your own is really important, because then you can help them to feel like they're important. You ever read that book, Val? Okay, so maybe we'll put that on the list. Gosh, we're gonna be such enlightened people. And Jay's being skeptical. There's no way this story happened in real life. Well, I'm gonna believe it did. And this guy has a whole foundation set up, but I don't have proof of it. And even if it didn't, I mean, that story, Edison happened in real life. He fell 10,000 times before he invented the light bulb. So there are examples that are verified out there, whether that specific story is or isn't. But I can see Jay's cynical. Sorry we're putting you to sleep, Jay. Have a good night. He's going to dream. Watch, that's going to infuse into his subconscious, and he's going to wake up tomorrow a positive person. He's going to be mad at me. Scott's is acts of service. Yeah, that's how my wife's is, Scott. That those people like things, acts of service to show that they're important. All right. Now this was interesting. That he has this creed, And it sounds a little corny, but so positive. Like he would read this every night. And I'll quickly read it. I believe in myself. I believe in those who work with me. I believe in my employer. I believe in my friends. I believe in my family. I believe that God will lend me everything I need with which to succeed if I do my best to earn it through faithful and honest service. I believe in prayer, and I will never close my eyes in sleep without praying for divine guidance to the end that I will be patient with other people and tolerant with those who do not believe as I do. I believe that success is the result of intelligent effort and does not depend upon any luck or sharp practices or double crossing friends, fellow men, or my employer. I believe I will get out of life exactly what I put into it. Therefore, I will be careful to conduct myself toward others as I would want them to act toward me. I will not slander those whom I do not like. I will not slack my work no matter what I may see others doing. I will render the best service of which I am capable because I have pledged myself to succeed in life, and I know that success is always the result of conscientious and efficient effort. Finally, I will forgive those who offend me because I realize that I shall sometimes offend others, and I will need their forgiveness. And then that's another example of auto suggestion. Like he would read this creed every night, and over time, that's fine, Val. Those words and those beliefs would seep into who he would become. Clay said it could easily not have happened. It's more if someone believes it or wants to. Yeah. Whether it happened or not, I mean, even if it didn't, if it's like a fable, there's a lesson there. I guess I'm just an optimistic person and I'm a trustful person. So in my mind, I believe it did happen. And I do know, to be a successful salesperson, you need that persistence. Or to be a successful reseller, you need persistence for that matter. And then he recommend copying this down and reading it every day using auto suggestion. Let's see. The ghost is at the door. That's funny, Lord. And then on 166, he says, you will notice that self-confidence is contagious. It is impelling. It is persuasive. It attracts others. All right. On the bottom of 166, he starts the self-confidence formula. First, I know that I have the ability, to achieve the object of my definite purpose, your goal. Therefore, I demand of myself persistence, aggressive, and continuous action towards its attainment. So that's number one. Second, I realize that the dominating thought of my mind eventually reproduce themselves in outward bodily action and gradually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my mind for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to be by creating a mental picture of this person and then transforming that picture into reality through practical service. And to me, this is really interesting because remember 1928, think about there's sports psychologists now that, it's visualization. Like Michael Jordan would visualize hitting that game-winning shot like in pregame every day. And he was outlaying this in 1928. So he came up with these rules. Number three, I know that through the principle of auto-suggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek expression through some practical means of realizing it. Therefore, I shall devote 10 minutes daily to demanding of myself the development of the factors named in the 16 lessons of the reading course. Number four, I have clearly mapped out and written down a description of my definite purpose in life for the coming 5 years. Now he clarifies it here. Your 5-year plan. Napoleon Hill created the 5-year plan. Like my goal was for a year, but now thinking about it, I also need to map out a 5-year plan. Like where do I want to be in 5 years? as a reseller or any other part of your life. I think that's pretty amazing, honestly. I have set a price on my service for each of these 5 years, a price that I intend to earn and receive through strict application of the principle of efficient, satisfactory service, which I will render in advance. So that's part of it. You set your goal, but you get nothing for free. What are you willing to give in return to get these goals that you set up? And number 5, I fully realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I will engage in no transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to me the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because I will first serve them. I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity, because I know that a negative attitude toward others can never bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I will believe in them and in myself. So, like number 5, you've got to be ethical. You can't. You're not going to. Nothing long lasting can be built the wrong way. And then he said, I will sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory, and repeat it aloud once a day with full faith that it will gradually influence my entire life so that I will become a successful and happy worker in any chosen field. Then he has a spot for your signature. So these are all auto-suggestion formulas. Last part on this section, he says, auto-suggestion leads you up the mountainside of peace and prosperity, or down into the valley of misery and poverty, according to the application you make of it. So auto-suggestion, if it's done properly, will lead you to prosperity in your goals. Or if you use it in a negative fashion, like negative self-talk, it can lead you into misery. All right, let's catch up on the chat, and then we're going to talk about habits, which I think is the last section of lesson 3. Louis says, I love the context to that which you read from one page. I'm one who seriously takes to heart the idea of being consciously working at it. Yeah. Persistent, diligent, consciously working. I think that's what it takes. MJ's rules, a great example of a person who maintained their focus and elevated. Yeah, I love MJ. MJ's the best ever. I debate with my daughter's boyfriend, Andrew, sometimes. He thinks LeBron, the silly boy. LeBron is great. I will give him credit. He is great. He's definitely top 5, probably number 2 all time. But there was no one like MJ. I mean, all you got to do is look at the clutch numbers, game on the line, at the end of a game, and MJ's numbers are off the chart. And MJ just refused to lose. He used all these visualization methods, the persistence, the hard work. MJ's the man. Goals are often what trip people up because they are obtained by daily aims so that you can work at what you are aiming at, be it 5 years. Yeah, you got to set those goals, and then you got to break them down to your, like Valerie was working on an action plan. Then what are your action plans, and what does that look like monthly? Like I'll set a monthly goal. What does that look like weekly? And then lastly, what does that look like daily? And then what are you going to do each day to make that happen? Val said, I guess she dropped out. She said, no ghost, just my creepy neighbor. Ooh, you got to tell us about the creepy neighbor. The Valerie of Misery. Oh, that's a good book by Stephen King, Misery. You have to tell us that story. Louis, his use of concern for humanity is the true sense of purpose of our true intentions and reasons why we do things. Val, where did you go? Can't see you. Yeah, I mean, what good is it to attain wealth if you're miserable, if you're not sharing? Like I think about the Ramsey plan, Dave Ramsey, debt free. Like he's got a 7-step plan, and the ultimate goal is to live like no one else, so you can live like no one else. And at the end, you've accumulated so much wealth, you're then able to help others. And that's the key. Popping out so I can make Chadsworth dinner before he gets home. Hey, that's good. Take care of your man. All right. Last section on lesson 3, and then next week will be lesson 4, and then we will finish this book. We'll talk more about that, and then we'll move on to Atomic Habits. All right. So then, speaking of habits, he talked about the power of habit. Habit grows out of environment, out of doing the same thing or thinking the same thoughts or repeating the same words over and over again. Habit may be likened to the groove on a phonograph record. That's funny, a phonograph record. While the human mind may be likened to the needle that fits into the groove. That's a really good metaphor, though. When any habit has been well formed through repetition of thought or action, the mind has a tendency to attach itself to and follow the course of that habit as closely as the phonograph needle follows the grooves in the wax record. Habit is created by repeatedly directing one or more of the 5 senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling in a given direction. After a habit has been well established, it will automatically control and direct our bodily activity, wherein may be found a thought that can be transformed into a peaceful factor in the development of self-confidence. The thought is this: voluntarily and by force of, if necessary, direct your efforts and your thoughts along a desired line until you have until you have formed the habit that will lay hold of you and continue voluntarily to direct your efforts along the same line. The object in writing out and repeating the self-confidence formula is to form the habit of making belief in yourself the dominating thought of your mind until that thought has been thoroughly embedded into your subconscious mind through the principle of habit. So habit is the tool using auto-suggestion and repetition to change your mindset, basically, to change how you think. He gives an analogy here. He goes, you learn to write by repeatedly directing the muscles of your arm and hand over certain outlines known as letters until finally you form the habit of tracing those outlines. Now you write with ease and rapidity without tracing each letter slowly. Writing has become a habit with you. I love that analogy. Like, think about it. Probably don't remember, but if you remember learning how to write in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, like, it was a real struggle, especially with cursive. Like, you had to really focus, and through habit of repetition, eventually it became ingrained. And now when we write, we don't even consciously think of it. So using habit is a very powerful tool to use that habit and that repetition to train our mind or our body to act a certain way, which will guide us to what we're trying to get it. And that book, Atomic Habits, will really help us. Like, there's habit stacking, and it gives you the psychology and then very practical ways of implementing them. So I can't wait till we get to that one. Any statement that you repeatedly make to yourself or any desire that you deeply plant in your mind through repeated statement will eventually seek expression through your physical outward bodily efforts. The principle of habit is the very foundation upon which this lesson on self-confidence is built. Let me repeat that. The principle of habit is the foundation, building a house, everything's built on that, upon which the lesson of self-confidence is built. So you've got to create habits through repetition to build the self-confidence, which you will then add in with your mastermind group and your definite chief aim or your goal to help you be successful. Like, all these pieces of the puzzle are coming together, guys. All right, let me catch up on the chat. Val says, Nikki wanted me to tell you sorry she couldn't be here tonight. She'll be here next week. All right, look forward to seeing her. Tell her we miss her. Hope she's doing well. Val, all right, thanks for chiming in even through the chat. My habits need a complete redo. For a long time, I've had the good enough mindset. I think to grow, I need to relearn my way of thinking and wanting to be better than just enough. I love that. Number one, you're being vulnerable. You're opening up. You're willing to look at your mindset and not just say, well, it's good enough. And knowing you need to grow, that you have more potential. And we'll get to that at the end as we're pushing towards the end of this chapter. That's really good. He says, page 170, you have but little conception of the possibilities which lie sleeping within you, awaiting but the awakening hand of vision to arouse you, and you will never have a better conception of those possibilities unless you develop sufficient self-confidence to lift you above the commonplace influences of your present environment. That is really good. When I underline and star, that means that's some good stuff, guys. That's good. We're capable of so much. We are capable of so much, and we too often settle for mediocrity or just good enough or barely getting by. Why? There's so much more out there. Why can't we get our slice of it? Why can't we get our slice of it to help others down the road? If you say, oh, well, that's just selfish, you're being a capitalist. Well, that wealth you can help others with. That's very powerful. He was talking about an essay he read from Emerson on spiritual laws. And he said he read this several times, and when he read it later in life, he said, I saw more in this essay than I had seen during previous readings, because the unfoldment of my mind since the last reading had prepared me to interpret more. That's what we were talking about at the beginning, how when you come to literature or a piece of art at different points in your life, you will get new things out of it each time. It's not the art, it's not the book that's changed, or the painting that's changed, or the sculpture that's changed. It's you that's changed, so you see it differently and you get something different from it. The human mind is constantly unfolding like the petals of a flower until it reaches the maximum of development. What this maximum is, where it ends, or whether it ends at all or not, are unanswerable questions, but the degree of unfolding seems to vary according to the nature of the individual and the degree to which he keeps his mind at work. A mind that is forced or coaxed into analytical thought every day seems to keep on unfolding and developing greater powers of interpretation. That's why you need to be in the one page at a time book club, guys. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to keep exposing petals of our mind as we grow. That's the whole goal. And then he gives an example of Henry Ford, and how Henry Ford was working as a laborer in a machine shop with but little schooling and without capital. Scores of other men, some of them with better organized brains than his, worked near him. Ford threw off the poverty consciousness, developed confidence in himself, thought of success, and attained it. Those who worked around him could have done as well had they thought as he did. Like Ford, he'll tell you, like Henry Ford is the one person that he studied the most out of all these successful people, and he used him a lot in his example. Hey, Lorena, glad you chimed in. Let me add you into our giveaway we're going to have at the end. Giving away a copy of Atomic Habits, which will be our next book we're reading. Thanks for dropping in while you're listening on the road. Appreciate it. Another Texas reseller. We got a lot of resellers here in Texas. All right. Now, this may sound corny, but I am a literature teacher, and there's a poem in here that I'm going to read because he included it. He says, Napoleon Hill says, there comes to mind a well-known poem whose author expressed a great psychological truth. And here it goes. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win, but you think you can't, it is almost certain you won't. If you think you'll lose, you've lost. For out of the world we find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you are outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can ever win a prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but soon or late, the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. That is a good one. Do we need to break down the rhyme scheme? No, all right, we won't do all that. But obviously, the message, the theme of that, it's about your mindset and believing that you can achieve something. And Napoleon Hill says, it can do no harm if you commit this poem to memory and use it as part of your working equipment in the development of self-confidence. I mean, that would be a great poem. Imagine if you read that every day. Like, that would just kind of seep into you. Somewhere in your makeup, there's a subtle something which, if it were aroused by the proper outside influence, would carry you to heights of achievement such as you have never before anticipated. Just as a master player can take hold of a violin and cause the instrument to pour forth the most beautiful and entrancing strains of music, so is there some outside influence that can lay hold of your mind and cause you to go forth in the field of your chosen endeavor and play a glorious symphony of success? I like that. A symphony of success. All right, we're getting close. Just got a couple more pages here. Let's catch up on the chat. We got some greetings in the chat. Always love the positive greetings. Scott says, what do you think about rewarding yourself when you hit your goal? That is a great question. Rewarding yourself. I like it. Like, one of the first resellers I used to watch was Bonafide Hustler. And he has this thing, like, when he goes garage selling, I don't remember the exact amount, but maybe it's $350. Like, if he acquires $350 worth of profit, then he goes and gets tacos, like he's earned it. And he won't allow himself to do that, to go get tacos. And he's in Austin, so we got a lot of Texas people here. We got some good tacos in Texas, guys. Texas tacos. So that's an example. I do think psychologically there is a benefit to rewarding yourself for hitting a goal. It probably reinforces that achievement and that effort. So I'm all for it. What about you guys? All right, Val says, I like it. Can you post a photo of that poem to the? Yes, ma'am. I will post a photo to it when the show's over here in a little bit. Louis says, it begs to ask, what is one's intention, or do we need to that false sense of good boy, girl pat on the back? But I think going for a treat may be okay, not as a reward. So if I'm getting Louis correctly, he's talking about like, what are the intentions? Is it, well, here's the thing. I mean, going back to Pavlov's theory with dogs, right? Like, that positive reinforcement is psychologically shown to reinforce those habits. So regardless of the intention or the reason why, if that treat subconsciously rewards that behavior that led to that outcome, then you're more likely to do it in the future. And so, we could analyze, why we do things. I think practically it's a good thing to do. Val says, it just hit me. So making my reselling goal and the steps to get there have already given me the self-confidence and motivation in that area in my life. I think yes, I would give you a fist bump. That's what I was implying. Like, I hit this level with reselling when I started hitting my goals. And then that confidence will transfer into other areas of your life. Like right now, fitness wise, I started a running program, which I'm sticking with, and I'm hitting my little goals. And I'm also working on self-development, relationships. Like, I think in Dave Ramsey, like in financial and learning how to deal with finances. That's what he says, that he's seeing people, once they get their finances under control, that success, that self-confidence, then they'll start to become marathon runners, or you can transfer that success and that self-confidence into other areas of your life. All right, Justin. I'm in Justin's room because he's got the good Wi-Fi. And I'm almost wrapping it up, Jay. All right. It's not that. It's just sometimes all these things come together and they finally click. All right. Let me finish this up. He tells another story about this guy who came into his office, and he had a copy of one of his earlier books. So this guy was down and destitute and was failing in life and about to give up, like suicidal. I know Jay probably said that part never happened. In that he was asking for Napoleon Hill for help. And Napoleon Hill says, page 177, to be perfectly frank with you, one of the no, that's a different part. He basically told him, hey, I can't help you. And the guy, like his head, his chest, his chin hit his chest. He goes about knowing someone in the building that can. And the guy goes, okay, take me to him. He took him to a mirror, and he had the guy look in the mirror. He goes, the person that can help you is this guy right here. And that was enough psychologically to get this guy turned around. And then he spends time talking about how he became successful and came back and shared that with him later. On page 177, it is impossible for anyone to foretell what seemingly insignificant incident may lead to an important turning point. This is what you're talking about, Val. Think about this. It is impossible for anyone to foretell what seemingly insignificant incident may lead to an important turning point in one's career, but there is no denying the fact that these turning points may be more readily recognized by those who have well-rounded out confidence in themselves. I think that's kind of what you were alluding to. And then he's talking about how fear is dangerous to the mind. He kind of comes back to fear. Bottom of 178, if you demand success of yourself and back up the demand with intelligent action, you are sure to win. Bear in mind, though, that there is a difference between demanding success and just merely wishing for it. You should find out what this difference is and take advantage of it. Like, a goal without a plan is just a dream, right? You're just wishing. Like, I hope I hit the lottery. There's no plan to hit the lottery. You just have to be lucky. But if you write out one of our plans and you create your action steps, you get in your mastermind, and then you do your auto suggestion, your self-confidence, then you start to move somewhere. Let's see. Then he talks about in Matthew, where Christ talks about faith is a grain of mustard seed, where, gosh, here, let me pull it up real quick. I don't want to paraphrase this. I'll just read you this quote real quick. So in the book of Matthew in the New Testament, Christ says, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto the mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. So obviously that's a great example of faith and what's possible. 179, you have within you all the power you need with which to get whatever you want or need in this world, and about the best way to avail yourself of this power is to believe it yourself. Know thyself, man. Know thyself. All right, we're on the last couple pages here. Then I'm going to catch up on the chat, and we're going to do our drawing. So stick around for a couple more minutes, and then Justin, you can get your room back. Page 180, others will believe in you only when you believe in yourself. You are continuously broadcasting what you think of yourself, and if you have no faith in yourself, others will pick up the vibration of your thoughts and mistake them for their own. You should be cautioned, however, to learn the difference between self-confidence, which is based upon sound knowledge of what you know and what you can do, and egotism, which is only based upon what you wish you knew or could do. So you don't confuse self-confidence and egotism. Self-confidence is the product of knowledge. Last quote from lesson 3, believe in yourself, but do not tell the world what you can do. Show it. Show it. All right. And that's lesson 3 on self-confidence. Well, actually, there's a few more, but those are like excerpts. And then lesson 4 was next Thursday. Well, actually, it won't be next Thursday because I'm going to be in Colorado on vacation. So it'll be the following Thursday. We'll finish out the book talking about the habit of saving. Lesson 4 on the law of success. Let me catch up on chat. Exactly. Hey, this is good stuff. Scott said, I never have rewarded myself, but I have huge goals I've shared with Brian and Clay. So I'm thinking about a reward. Yeah, Scott, I love Scott sets big goals. Scott develops action plans and he's hitting those goals. And he's also very generous. He shares these ideas with us and we're very thankful. And Scott's a great person to have in your mastermind for sure. Louis says, at a time, who is this in Austin? But we are not dogs. Regarding Pavlov's dogs, we are consciously asked, must I feel the need? But tacos. Yeah, we're not dogs, but psychologically, we do respond to those same stimulus. Positive reinforcement. And yes, tacos. Lorena says, demanding success means action, after which all I want, but if I'm not putting in some sort of work, then I won't go anywhere. Preach, Lorena. Preach, girl. Kind of like a hamster wheel. That is a good metaphor. Oh, there's Clay's closet. Change your... Louis, I got home and watching school board meeting. As that affects me more right now, but well, I watched a lot of it early, Clay. Like they were just basically settling on the calendar, which it looks like teachers, if it approves, August 27th, we go back. Students, September 8th. Possibility of the first 8 weeks online. But as in any other thing, it's all in limbo. But that kind of ties into here, right? We do need that knowledge of what's going to happen. But like I was talking to Clay, we can't dwell on these things we can't control. That fear will feed into us and then it'll immobilize us. I choose to focus that anxiety into my reselling, which I can control, which will help me get to a better place in the future. That's my take on it anyway. Lorraine's homeschooling my kiddos. Whew, that's a long subject. Like, how old are the kids? What do you think? How do you feel about doing that? I think safety-wise, for the short term, definitely be good to keep your kids home, especially here in Texas. Good quote to end on. Thank you. Whatever works best for you, but I think it's the right call if you're able to make it. And stay at home with the kids. Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of variables. We need to know more information before we can say yeah or nay, because there's some parents, I'm not saying you are, Lorena, but there's some parents I'll be like, oh, hell no. You are ignorant. Oh, never mind. But we have to know more of the variables. All right, let's do the giveaway. And before we do that, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Resellers out there, there's a link to 7 Sticks reseller group. We have our reseller mastermind that we were talking about, 7 p.m. Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central. Love for y'all to join us. Last week we set our goals, and we meet every Sunday night as a mastermind group to help each other to become better resellers. So anybody that wants to join that, check out the link, 7 pages at a time. And then I publish the Zoom room number, and we come together and mastermind. All right, let's see. Let's do this. Let's share the screen. Here we go. Rusty, I don't do a lot of lives anymore. Okay. All right, so there's the will. Hey, Justin, I'm gonna put my son Justin in here. All right, so this is who we have on our giveaway. I've never used pick or will. Saw some other resellers doing it. This looks fun. We have Val, Triple D, aka Scott, Lone Star Picker, aka Louie, Clay, Jay, Lorena, and Justin, all in the drawing. Clay says, I have friends sending their kids back, and I'm happy for them to do so. I wouldn't do it, but with work and stuff, it makes sense. Man, these are tough decisions. Oh, thanks for posting that link. Join our group. I'll put a link to our mastermind. Also, you could join our online book club, one page at a time, where I will put that poem up. My daughter is required not far from Lorraine to remain home for the first 3 weeks. My kid is a senior, feels emotional levels drop due to more. Yeah, my oldest son just graduated from college and couldn't walk across stage. Really sad. All right, everyone chants together. Wheel of Fortune. All right, here we go. All right. We're gonna do it. Love language book, go therapy, blah blah blah. Manifesting the next. All right, here we go. Next book. So we have Lorena, Justin, Val, Triple D, Lone Star Picker, Clay, and Jay. This drawing is for our next book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Link is in the description. If you don't win, you want to get a copy. And I would love to have more people join our online chats like Val was doing. I think we can have up to 10. And if we get too big for that, we could always go to Zoom. So let's go ahead and spin it. Here we go. Hold your breath. Manifest. Positive self-thoughts. Auto-suggestion. I will win. I will win. Repeat after me. I will win. Here we go. So exciting. All right. Lorena is our winner. Sweet Texas Spines. Congratulations. If you will, I guess the easiest thing is just join that 7 Sticks book club. Then you can message me on Facebook, or I will also give you my email. If you don't want to join the group, you can email me, Lorena, just your full name, mailing address, and I will get that book shipped to you. And hopefully you'll join our book club when we get to it, plus anyone else that wants to join. Val just shared the book club page. Appreciate that, Val. It is an amazing book, and it fits perfectly after reading this one. That link to Atomic Habits is in the YouTube description, guys. So I'll have it there if you want to get it and you didn't win. And Lorena, congratulations. There's my email, or you could join the 7 Sticks page and message me there. Either way is fine. Hope everybody got a little something from this tonight. I think mindset. Oh, up in Big D. All right, sounds great. Just get that to me and I'll get it to you. And congratulations. Anyway, yeah, you could have. Hope y'all got something from it tonight. By the way, if you haven't, smash the like button. That helps me out. And next Sunday night, Mastermind Reseller Group. Normally it would be next Thursday would be the next book online book club. That'll be the following Thursday. We will finish the Laws of Success. And then the week after that, we will start Atomic Habits. And it is amazing, amazing read. So thanks for everybody for coming in to view. My son Justin wants his room back because I'm right next to the Wi-Fi. And if y'all see me much, you know we have Wi-Fi problems here. So congratulations, Val. Thanks to everyone that came out tonight. Y'all have a good night. Clay, if you're there, give me the outro. I need to get that subscription back, the premium subscription, to get my outro, my Texas Treasures. But anyway, y'all have a good night. Stay safe out there. Until next time, we'll see you. Peace.